What is up, Podheads? Episode 103 of the Audio Slay podcast. And we were just talking, guys, just now, right before Anthony hit play, hit record. What number is this episode going to be? We didn't even know at the time. So, hey, a little behind the music, a little, inside baseball. This is episode 103. So you're going to hear this in that sequence. How you guys doing?
Good. And it's not that we're senile, there's just a lot going on where
we might be senile.
Maybe. Yeah. Pandemic brain.
We're getting up there. Yeah. I mean, at this point, the episodes blend in. I almost equate it to bands with gigs. It's like, do they remember who they toured with, where they played? I don't know. Maybe,
What is up, Cleveland? Dude, we're in Cincinnati. Shit.
I mean, I get that. And I can actually understand how bands kind of get robotic with that, where they just swap out town names. It's like at some point you've kind of seen it all, done it all, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's actually more inside baseball. We're banking episodes because we're getting busier behind the scenes. So the success after 100 was a milestone, but we're actually starting to bank episodes into the future. So we're not only dealing with pandemic brain, but we're trying to always remember, where are we in real time? Drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know where we are. I know exactly where we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this current event still relevant? Is it still current? Is it still an event?
That's another thing.
Is Joe Rogan on Spotify? Oh, wait.
Yeah. We don't even know at this point. This is going to drop on a date that Joe Rogan might have been booted and he's, making hundreds of millions of dollars on his own. So who knows?
Yeah.
All right. We had a guest tonight. Anthony, tell us about the guest.
So, I mean, at this point, you've clicked on the episode. You know who it is. It's Vinnie Caruana. I know for us, and obviously we get into this in the episode, we go way back with him. I mean, for me personally, back to 2001. I remember going to the Drive-Thru Records website, and they, right on the landing page, the splash page, back when that was a thing, they announced the signing of the Movielife. So that was my formal introduction to them, and, obviously I got the Movielife Has a Gambling Problem EP, and you go back and check out the Rev stuff. But yeah, we had Vinnie on from the Movielife. He went on to go form I Am the Avalanche. He's done a million side projects since then with Peaced Out, Constant Elevation. He's got some solo stuff. And that was kind of the theme with this whole episode, is he's kind of pivoted over the years to different bands, different scenes, different genres. But he's always stayed true to himself, and he's always stayed relevant. So we're going to get into that right now with Vinnie Caruana.
Hey everybody, thanks for checking out this episode. If you are new here, we've had some really great guests in the past too. We had Benny Horowitz, the Gaslight Anthem. We had Matty Arsenault last week with his new band, The World, with G and Miyagi, and then we had him actually way back on episode 39 too. So peep some Matty stuff back there. We had Peanut from 311 on episode 70. We had Tucker Rule of Thursday on episode 92. We've had all kinds of just great conversations throughout the life of the pod, now 2 years. So yeah, go back and check that stuff out. We really appreciate you checking us out today. If you like it, hit us up in the DMs or email us at audioslaypodcast@gmail.com. Thanks, guys.
Vinnie, here we are on the podcast, Audio Slay Podcast. We appreciate you spending your night with us, and yeah, we're stoked, man. This is 25, maybe 20 years in the making.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Anthony, thanks for having me.
Yeah, right on. we always kind of try to start these conversations off with kind of an icebreaker. We're going to start this one off with a story, and I'm going to tell it. You typically have the guest tell. I'm going to tell this one. So this story is dates back to 2004, where the Movielife almost cost me 10 grand.
Okay.
So you're like, where's this going? So I was, I think I was a sophomore in college, had a radio show at the college radio station, punk, hardcore, metal, adjacent, you name it, we played it. So this was pretty much right after 40-hour train back to Penn, came out, and we had just freshly added Jamestown to the playlist. And back then, you had 3 options as far as playing songs with swears. Either 1, don't play them. 2, have the label send an edited copy, which Drive-Thru or MCA did not, or you edit it yourself. Or 3, you drop the volume in real time as the song is playing. Yeah. So obviously, I'm 18. I'm like, we're fucking dropping it. I'm not editing shit. So we're playing the song, first time playing it. I mean, we'd heard the song, but first time playing it on the air. And then the first, I can't fucking believe, goes by, and I'm like, I look to my co-host Ed. I'm like, shit, that just went out on the air. What do we do?
Yeah.
And we were like, you know what? Just let it ride. Just let it ride. So the song goes on. Second verse comes. Can't fucking believe. And we're like, oh, shit. So
a way more assertive.
Way more direct and assertive. So when you're on the air in the station, when the phone rings, there's no ring. It just flashes. So the station's lighting up like a Christmas tree. And we're like, oh, shit. So I answer the phone, and there's just a voice on the other end that says, that's 10 grand. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Kind of laughing. I'm like, what?
The anxiety.
I go, what? And they're like, actually, that's 20 grand. And it's like, I'm like, who is this? And it was the GM of the station. He's like, that's an FCC violation. 10 grand a pop. You do it again, the show's done. We're shutting down the show.
Wow.
So,
he listened to every minute of everybody's show?
Actually, yes. The dude was pretty intense. But after that, we made sure that, 1, we listened to every song that we played beforehand and either found the clean version or just made sure we were on the ball. But yeah, in real time, you had to drop the volume, and we fucked up.
That's amazing. I thought it was like a bet that you were like lost or something. Like Movielife trivia. That would have been 2003, by the way, not 2004.
Right.
Well, unless you if we were still a band. Were we still a band? Yes, because the record was just coming out.
At that point, this was 04, so you were not a band, and we'll get into that later.
Oh,
we'll get into that later.
Okay. Yeah, geez.
You might have a question or two about that, but nothing crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you level set for us a little bit, though? I know people have probably heard it, but grew up in Long Island. How did you find music? What was the stuff that you listened to as a kid that you kind of got you into that full-time scene?
So Long Island I have 2 older brothers, and they found the hardcore scene for me on Long Island, and it was popping off. And so one of my brothers played in a band, and I was allowed to start going to shows because my first show was like 11 years old, I think, because my brother was in a band. And then, have you ever heard of Vision of Disorder?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. They were like they're from our town. They were my brother's best friends. They, still are. And so I was allowed to go to shows at a very young age because my parents knew the guys. And so I was allowed to go if my brother's band or VOD was playing. So bands like VOD, these are all Long Island bands that were just are still insanely, were ahead of their time, like doing sick shit. Not all of them got off the island as much as, some of them, but like VOD, Silent Majority was a huge one. That's the more melodic side of like Long Island hardcore. And I think Silent Majority's like seminal record came out like the year that Movielife started, or maybe like a year before.
97, yeah.
So I was definitely like, that was the best record off of Long Island, and I was locked in, and I was always into the melodic stuff. And I always like the heavy stuff too, but another band called Mind Over Matter, that's super important to old Long Island heads. Let's see, a band called Neglect. And then as far as like outside of our scene, like Sick of It All were the Kings. And that was like, once I knew what hardcore was, I soon found out that I had to know about Sick of It All. And I had to know about Minor Threat, and like some of the other forefathers and stuff. We had a lot of older guys telling us what was up, so it was really, we were fortunate in that respect.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
We had Brendan Garone of Incendiary on about a year ago, and we did a full 25-year retro on Long Island, so we know most of those bands for sure, and the ones we don't, like Neglect, Brendan had brought them up.
Yeah. That's a band that you weren't familiar with?
Only by name. I think we're a few years older than you. Younger than you, rather.
They, and in fairness, like they didn't like tour the States a bunch. Like if anything, they toured Europe a bunch because there was a bunch of people in Europe that were interested in a band who was super heavy, but also every single song is about committing suicide. So that was Neglect's whole like thing. And the singer would like hurt himself on stage. And it was always, I mean, for you know, an 8th grader,
right?
I was like, wow.
What did I see?
And yeah, Neglect was like, you know, VOD was the only band giving, on Long Island, VOD was the only band giving Neglect a run for their money as far as like heaviness goes.
Man, it's crazy that you were seeing shows that young. It kind of like reminded me of like maybe growing up in like Europe or something where you're drinking wine at like 8 years old instead of like waiting till you're 21. So you're like checking out this music at such a young age.
Or 16.
Or 16, like
God.
everyone else here. Yeah.
Yeah, it was important that, I mean, Long Island hardcore for the most part was a peaceful scene, but like one wrong band on the wrong bill and then things unravel and or, you know, one new guy who doesn't understand the scene and doesn't understand etiquette at shows and rubs somebody the wrong way and all that. But like the stuff I was witnessing, like this controlled, like kind of violence, unsupervised, by the way, there was no security guards at any of these DIY like zones that we were all operating in. Yeah, my parents didn't know like how gnarly it was. But they knew that my brothers were there and that the VOD guys were there and that I'd be cool. So yeah, I was really lucky. I feel really lucky to have witnessed a really important time and a really important scene when I was like still, my brain was still forming, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you knew it was special. It's obviously, we look back and, you know, we love so many bands, you know, Glassjaw, Silent Majority, Kill Your Idols, like all those guys, but we never lived it. So, you know, hearing these stories where people actually knew it was special in the moment is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I felt lucky. It was my thing. As soon as I went to my first show, I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go to shows. Like, I don't care about school. I'm just waiting for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Hopefully my parents let me go to this show that my parents aren't going to go to, that my brothers aren't going to go to. That took a while. But yeah, no, I knew it was special and it blew my mind. Like the first time I was exposed to Long Island hardcore or hardcore at all was my brother came home with a VHS tape from VOD playing the Battle of the Bands at the high school that I went to, but I was in junior high at the time. And that was the first time I ever saw anybody mosh.
Wow.
And was like, holy shit, what is that? I like that. And kind of around the same time, my brother Mike brought home a 7-inch from like his first show on Long Island, and it was a Mind Over Matter show. The 7-inch begins with like a, you know, in Full Metal Jacket when they all recite the like the love letter to their gun, kind of, this is my rifle. Yep. There are many like it, but this one's mine. And that's how like the 7-inch starts. And I'm like, holy shit. So not only am I learning about hardcore, but there's like samples on hardcore records from movies.
Oh man.
So that was really like when Movielife put out our first demo, which is, you know, same, if it was on vinyl, it would have been our first 7-inch, you know, but like our first demo tape that we would sell at shows, like we had like multiple samples on it because that was just the way Long Island rolled.
What did you have? What was the sample?
Fuck. I don't know. I don't know what they're from.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
That's half the fun, digging back to see, like, you hear it for the first time. Like, I remember like Bleeding Through used to be notorious for that. And I didn't know that was from Boondock Saints for years until like a few years ago. Yeah,
I have no idea. If anybody wants to do that research, who's listening, I'm sure the first Movielife demo is called the Red Demo because it had a red tape cover. And I'm sure it's on YouTube, and I'm sure some sleuth can figure out what it's from, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure it even made sense where it went. Like, I don't know if it had anything to do with the song that was about to unfold or anything.
The internet will find that out for us. I'm sure somebody will hit us up in the DMs.
Yeah,
I love that. So like around this time, do you think I want to be in a band? And then how do you discover that you're going to do vocals, be the singer?
That entire time from, when I first found punk until I was 17. So there was a good 6 years there. There's going to shows, having fun, being a part of the scene, making friends, hanging out with buds, meeting people, learning about a community and a culture. Not once did I think about singing in a band.
Oh, really?
I just liked hanging out. My whole life was soccer growing up. Not that it was my whole life, but like a lot of my spare time was dedicated to it. And that was a big problem for me because my soccer games would get in the way of like matinee shows and stuff. So I liked going to shows, never thought about being in a band. I had friends in band, Glassjaw we're 15. Say by the time we were 15, Glassjaw was Glassjaw, I think. They were called Minority Overall before Glassjaw. And they were doing their thing. And me and Daryl were some of the only younger kids going to shows at that point. So me and him found each other. So he was like the only friend my age in the scene that like was doing a band. And it was I knew that I could sing a little bit. And that's the way this whole thing came about. Honestly, it's crazy. The only reason we're talking right now, the only reason I got to see the world and had all the fun I've had is because me and Daryl grew up together. There was a song on the Glassjaw EP, Kiss, Kiss, Bang, Bang, that had like two vocal parts that overlapped. So it needed two singers. So me and Daryl would drive around in my Jeep and we would sing along to fucking, I don't know, what were we singing along to back then? Far. We sung along to Far a lot, and Silent Majority, Face to Face, stuff like that. And he knew I could sing because we would sing in my car while we're driving. And so he's like, you want to sing this song with me? So every once in a while I would get on stage and sing this song with him. And not even stage. I mean, this particular incident was like in a basement somewhere in somebody's house out on Long Island. And Eddie Reyes from Taking Back Sunday, we knew him as Eddie from Clockwise, because that was another really good Long Island band that I forgot to mention when you asked me. Eddie's like, oh, that was cool. You should try out for my new band. I'm like, holy shit, Eddie from Clockwise's band. I'm like, I don't really sing. And he's like, I just saw you sing, come out and try out. And that's literally the only reason why we're talking right now.
I saw you sing in the Jeep. That's what he said.
Yeah. I passed you on the Southern State Parkway and it sounded good.
Man. And we've had people come on here and say that they've learned playing an instrument from just ear by ear, not actual music theory. So that seems like the way you're describing it, you kind of learned how to sing just from being at shows and I guess in the Jeep as well, singing along, but really that was your education.
Yeah. And like sitting in the basement from like an early age, 4 or 5 years old, the basement was where the record player was.
Yeah.
Sitting in the basement, my brother singing along. My parents, made us join like choir, or they called it chorus in school. And I knew I could carry a tune, And then when I started finding my own music, or even the music my parents like raised us on, like I would sing along, enjoy it. I said that to one of my brothers recently, like, you could have been like me and I could have been you. Like my brother BJ has like almost the same exact speaking voice as I do. And he does the same thing. If I'm in a car with him, like he'll hum along or like sing along a little bit to whatever's on. And we have the same, aptitude towards keep carrying a tune, I'm like, dude, if you sang, like you'd sound exactly like me. And like, yep. This could have been like, roles reversed.
So Eddie later joined, he was in TBS, right? Eddie Reyes in Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah. He founded TBS and wrote those first few records, I believe, with those guys. Yeah.
So he asked you to join the band. So that ends up being the Movielife. Any goals with like,
he asked me to try out.
Oh, to try out. So you weren't a shoo-in.
No. So he asked me to try out. And what they did was they gave me a cassette tape with a song that they wrote, and then said, write to this and see what you really got. And I didn't have shit because I'd never written a song. So
Wow.
I went to Daryl's parents' house, and we broke out like a book that he had a bunch of poems and lyrics in, and we just took something out of his book, and he helped me put the words to the song. And then I showed up and was like, "Yeah, I wrote this."
That's amazing.
Nice.
Any early goals with sound? When I think Long Island, I think you guys, I think Crime and Stereo, I think Silent Majority. Like there's some overlap, and maybe we'll get into that later.
Mm-hmm.
But any goals in those early days of like, all right, we want to sound like this, or we don't want to sound like that?
As far as me opening my mouth and sound coming out, I think I was immediately trying to sound like Tommy from Silent Majority, just like this throaty melodic thing. And that was that made a lot of sense, and that worked out as well as it did, because me and Tommy have similar voices as well, even speaking voices. So like, I don't know, our vocal cords are similar. And so when I started singing, like my friends would make fun of me saying I sounded like him, or I was trying to sound like him. I was just trying to sound like anything, you know? And honestly, as far as sound goes, the other dudes, like the original Movielife lineup was Evan on drums and Alex on guitar and Eddie on guitar and Nick from Bayside on bass. And basically like they were just kind of like, Alex and Evan were kind of coming from an indie rocky kind of place, and Eddie was coming from a Long Island hardcore place, and I was coming from a place where as soon as like we started moving and I started writing, and like not writing music, I didn't write. That's the thing about Movielife, I didn't write any music in Movielife. I would write the vocals over the music. And so actually, no, I wrote I Hope You Die Soon and If Only Duct Tape Could Fix Everything.
Oh, nice. The short one. The short one.
I wrote.
Well, that's the neglect influence circling back later in life for you.
Right. So those guys were like coming from this indie rock place mixed with Eddie's kind of like sensibilities that you could even hear in the early TBS shit. Like he just had this very like particularly Eddie way of writing songs and writing riffs and shit. So it was like this clash of like Eddie's thing mixed with these guys that weren't really hardcore dudes or punk dudes. They were kind of like into the Pixies and the Magnetic Fields and stuff, you know. And then there was me, and as soon as I got moving and as soon as I started getting a little bit of confidence, I definitely wanted to make shit harder and faster and more punk and more, you know, Descendants, Face to Face, Lifetime kind of stuff. Silent Majority, you know.
Yep. Bringing in a little more of an edge than that indie kind of style, that indie flavor that was also great. I mean, you guys took from everywhere, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how the sound started to form.
So you guys, you put out It's Go Time in '99, and then this time next year, pretty much a year later on Revelation. I'm a Revelation fanboy. Like I wish I could live that era. I've always been curious.
That was
like,
a dream. Yeah.
Like how did that come about? You know, because I assume maybe a local-ish band at that point.
Yeah. So we toured extensively on It's Go Time, and played a lot of shows in front of very little people. You know, we would just play wherever, but we toured. Basically, we were working, like, thinking back on it, we were very driven to like not like get famous or anything, but just to tour, you know. And obviously once you start touring, you realize you need like the right label to like promote you, and like you need to see your records actually in the stores in the towns that you're going to, and all the punk rock record stores and all that. So Movielife sent demos and everything to like every independent label period in the universe, and we're turned down by everyone. There was a label called Deep Elm. They did all the Emo Diaries compilations. Are you guys familiar with those?
It doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, no. Nope.
It was like this. It was a series of compilations. There was probably like 10 of them or whatever. And there was like real bands that were touring through New York that would be on these compilations. You remember how important compilations were back in the day?
Oh, absolutely.
Huge, massive. That's how we found everybody when we were, you know, at 1999, 2000.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. So Emo Diaries was like, if you go back to the Emo Diaries, like track listings on all of these CDs, it was nuts. There's like huge, you know, bands that fucking conquered the world on some of these things. So we really wanted to sign to Deep Elm because we were in this kind of indie rockish kind of emo post-hardcore thing. Deep Elm was like, we're not signing you, but we'll put you on Emo Diaries. We'll put one song on. And we were like, holy shit.
Right.
And that was like, shit, I wish I could tell you what was on that. There was some bands on that like, you know, ended up making some waves and shit. So Jason Upright, who was an A&R at Revelation Records, who's still a dear friend, he hears the Emo Diaries.
Oh, wow.
Our song on the Emo Diaries, which was a song from our second demo, which is the white demo, because it's called the white demo because it had a white cover.
Of course.
It was literally a white cardboard sleeve to cover the cassette. So Jason Upright hears our song. He says, that's interesting. It's not, you know, not fully formed, but I see something in you guys. And then we sent him It's Go Time. And he was like, oh, okay. I hear some shit on here that I like. That's cool. We were desperately at the same time trying to sign to Initial Records as well. Yep. Because they were like, you know, putting out sick records. Boy Sets Fire, Ink and Dagger, like like mid to late 90s stuff. I remember we drove from Long Island to Louisville, Kentucky to play one show with Boy Sets Fire, to play in front of Andy, the guy that owned Initial Records.
Nice. Wow. So showcase. That's awesome at that age.
That's a grind right there, yeah.
Yeah, like 30 hours round trip or whatever in a Jeep. And we go down, we play. We're like, that was fucking sick. I think it was a big crowd and like nobody knew us, but we played well. And we were like, I think we're going to be able to sign to Initial Records. And then we all go out to eat after the show, as you do back in the 90s. Everyone's, what diner are we going to? We went out to eat, and Andy just didn't sit with us. He like sat at another table and like sat with like Boy Sets Fire and like literally just didn't give us the time of day. He's like, you guys good? Okay, I'll be over here. And we were like, all right, I guess he doesn't like us.
Oh man. So
we get home and Rev comes through and they're like, we want to sign you. We were like,
wow,
holy shit.
Yep.
Like all of our friends were like, what?
Right.
They're like, Revelation Records, dude, fucking Gorilla Biscuits, eat it today, Judge. So Rev wants to sign us. The word gets through, and Andy from Initial Records comes through. And you know how it is when 25 years goes by.
Yeah, right.
He's basically like, he came through with some kind of silly offer, like, whatever they're giving you, I'll give you $1 more than that.
Of course.
Like he like dipped his toe in like last second and was like, I want to sign you now.
It's a bidding war for the Movielife.
Yeah, somebody else took interest. All right, I'm interested. Let's go.
Wait, did he know that Rev was interested?
Yeah,
he must.
Okay,
yeah. That's the only reason he came in. He came in last minute because he knew Rev was interested, and we were like, no, we're already like this guy that this guy that actually has shown interest and kind of got into us in a more like organic way. And you know, like I said, Jason's still a close friend. He's the kind of guy that I want to work with this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course, if it was fucking Satan himself and he was like, want to sign to Rev, we'd be like, yeah. You know, if it was Simon Brody from Drowning Man himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the way Rev happened.
Because like you guys were at that time like in the middle of the sound, like In My Eyes, Himza, Garrison, Game Face, like you throw those
Fast Break.
Yeah, you throw all those guys in a blender. There's the Movielife. So in a crazy way, it was probably a perfect fit.
Yeah, Rev had a really, really diverse roster at that point. Sorry, I'm getting FaceTimed by my friend in Hawaii.
Invite him in.
So yeah, I mean, that was a sick. We were really happy with how diverse it was. Like, it wasn't all hardcore. Not that Rev was always all hardcore, but we felt like it was a nice place for us to be sitting. And we really loved Fast Break, and Fast Break had signed to Rev and put out their Rev record. And we were like, oh, yeah, we want to tour Fast Break and stuff like that, which we never did.
You never did.
Man, it's almost like, what was that CD you were talking about earlier? The one with all the bands on it. You got your song on it.
The Emo Diaries.
Emo Diaries. So up in Maine, it was Monitor This, right? For every CD you bought, you got like a free CD with all the songs on it. So I almost feel like, way you're describing the label, at least at this time, it was almost like that was the transcendence of, okay, a label can have more than one genre under their imprint. It doesn't have to be typecast, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and we were used to that. Like the Long Island hardcore scene, like Silent Majority and Neglect playing together was two ends of the spectrum. You know what I mean? And we were used to mixed bills and things being all over the place, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Indie bands would open, and then like my brother had a band that was called the Warped Weeble Wobbles, and they were a joke band that were
awesome,
super beloved on Long Island. And they named the band after their nickname that they gave to their high school math teacher. And they would literally like play with Madball.
That's
like,
awesome. Wow.
Every show on Long Island was like, most shows on Long Island had a really mixed bill, which was cool because a lot of us were shown the way. Like, we were shown that this is the way it can be. It doesn't need to be closed-minded, like ignorant shit. You can like this. You can dig Earth Crisis and then go see Mineral the next day, you know?
I mean, that's kind of how we've tried to do this, and who we talk to and the people that we bring in. That, I mean, we've listened to a bunch of stuff over the course of, 30 years of music fandom for the three of us, and like pigeonholing to one sound, never a good thing. I want to hear all the sounds,
God, can you imagine a life without, listening to Queen and then listening to fucking Sepultura or something?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, and that was also a thing at that time period too. Like, it wasn't all a Long Island thing. I mean, but you guys definitely were right in the middle. Like, you could play with Fast Break, you could play with Saves the Day, but then you also played with Sky Came Falling and Bane and Reach the Sky and whatnot. Yeah. So it sounds like it was just organic. Like, that's the way it happened.
Yeah. And, there was a lot of like weekend trips and things where you're like, oh, there's a show going on in Vermont and we're going to go play, and Cave-In's headlining and Piebald's playing and local bands are playing, and you end up on you jumping on these shows, right? And then if you're talking about touring, like when we first did our first tours, we toured with Inside from Long Island. Do you guys remember them or familiar with them?
A little too young, I think.
Eddie Reyes was actually Inside as well. He was in every band from Long Island at one point. And so aside from Inside, we would go out on our own and just jump on random shows. But when we got a booking agent and we started going on tours, it was all hardcore tours, like all hardcore stuff that we really had to fight to like turn heads at shows. Full US with Kill Your Idols in like 99. You know what I mean? Like Reach the Sky and Bane.
Yeah.
Reach the Sky was a good like leveler. They
Absolutely.
had some melody there, but they came from that ass beating like Boston hardcore world, But like, yeah, a lot of our early stuff was like we would play with heavy bands and we would be the non-heavy band playing the bill.
Wow. So at this time, and we just talked to Benny Horowitz a couple weeks ago from the Gaslight Anthem.
I love him.
Among other things, obviously he's got his hands in everything, which is cool. But he mentioned early on for Gaslight playing with Against Me and kind of learning from them how to be a band and how to like work the crowd and hone down your set and not be tuning after every song. Was there a band like that for you guys?
I would say in 2000, I think it was 2000, we ended up on tour with Newfound Glory. And this is when they made a name for themselves in the very DIY kind of world. But like when we ended up on tour with them, they were exploding. They're on their first record. Like it went from like doing this tour and saying yes and like, you know, playing like some small places, like maybe a few hundred people, and then maybe in bigger cities, like 1,000 people. But it like when we said yes to the tour with them, it was Newfound Glory, Glassjaw, Movielife, and Autopilot Off.
Nice.
And
It's a great bill.
that was Newfound Glory. You have to ask them. You have to do an interview with Chad or one of those guys.
We'd love to. Hook us up, man.
I don't know who they learned their professionalism from. I believe they learned their like, oh shit, we better get this shit together. We're playing in front of 1,000 people. I believe they learned that from Less Than Jake, and Chad, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but not that we learned from Newfound Glory what to do, but that was the first time we were consistently playing in front of full rooms, like in full rooms. And we just knew that like we couldn't just like turn our backs to the crowd. And like that was a big problem for me. Like when I would sing, I would look at the kick drum and just like sing, you know. So
like Maynard from
Glory,
Tool. You're just like Maynard from Tool.
Yeah. The Newfound Glory tour, which was a few weeks, was very like eye-opening. Like, hey, we better get our live shit together. We better get like strap locks for our guitars so our guitars don't like fall off the straps. Like, we better learn how to talk to a crowd that don't necessarily know who you are. So that was the first, like, that's the first thing that springs to mind. Of course, always like, you know, deriving stage presence from going to see Sick of It All as a kid, going to see Silent Majority, going to see all the Long Island bands. Like you did have an idea of what to do with your hands and shit like
Exactly.
that, you know. At least if you're playing like 8 songs opening for someone, at least like for at least one of those gaps, you can thank the bands that like, or like shout out your friends. But there's going to be like 6 other ones where you have to say something, you know.
Yeah, buy the merch.
That's when you start. That's when you. That's also when you start realizing, like, oh, let's start connecting songs. Like, you know, like, let's not stop after every song.
Yeah, keep it flowing. I'm noticing a little bit of a pattern here too, because at this time, Movielife's getting some traction and whatnot. And Newfound Glory was on Drive-Thru, right? And you guys had signed to Drive-Thru at this time. Distro was through MCA, who Blink-182 was on MCA, and I know they were tight with the Blink guys. So I kind of see there's a little bit of a connection there. Is this how the Drive-Thru record signing came about? Is through Newfound Glory?
I don't know how Drive-Thru found out about us. We were playing with that, like, so before we toured with Newfound Glory, we had played like, you know, a few shows here. We would play with them when they came through Long Island, you know. So I think Drive-Thru was paying attention to what Newfound Glory and Midtown like were doing and who they were playing with and who's unsigned and who's whatever. So eventually Drive-Thru reached out to us. We were signed to Rev. We were touring on This Time Next Year, and Drive-Thru reached out, and we were like, no, we're happy here. We're on this label that we grew up like supporting, and like, this is cool. Like we're good. And that was really it.
Wow. That's a power move.
Yeah.
And then in Drive-Thru, we were keeping it real. And then Drive-Thru, it was clear that they wanted to sign us. They wanted the Movielife. As we were growing, we started seeing what the benefits could be. And then very simply, we got into a van wreck. We were touring with Reach the Sky on the way out to the West Coast to meet up with Bane. And we were going to do a Bane tour. Literally never played with Bane in my entire career to this day.
Oh, it didn't happen.
It's like this curse. Never happened. We got in a van wreck, flipped our van, went home. The song Jamestown is about that van wreck. So it wasn't all a loss.
So it definitely opened some doors for you. And like, I know, speaking for myself, like that, the Drive-Thru signing is actually how 15-year-old me learned about the Movielife. I remember going to Drive-Thru Records or drivethru.com, and remember when websites used to have landing pages? Remember the, you know, landing page of a website? You guys were on it. Like, Drive-Thru signs the Movielife, and I was like, Is that a band? What is that? So that's how I found out about you guys, was through that. So it definitely opened the doors. And
people that were into Drive Thru Records bands were like, who else can I consume right now? You know what I mean? Like it was such like a devoted fan base for a label.
Yep. Because it was that was pre-Finch. It was probably maybe pre-Starting Line, like RX Bandits, Homegrown was there. So did you feel like you fit in at all, or?
We felt like we came from a harder place. Not that we were a hardcore band, but we were just used to being in a hardcore world. We did see that when we played with bands like that, like on the more melodic tip and like maybe even like early pop punky kind of stuff, we would do really well.
Yeah.
And we liked that kind of music too. Like we were into like everything, you know? So this band rec was kind of a catalyst. We were like square one. We were fucked. We like bought this van with like money we all chipped in from like working full time and like trying to be a band. All the gear was fucked up. Like we needed, like, it would have been really, really hard for us to get back on our feet and like actually get back to playing shows in front of 20 people. You know what I mean? Like, we were nowhere. The only thing we had was our van and some guitars and some amps. And like, so when that was taken away from us, that's when we started being like, Drive Thru, see if they want to fucking get us a bunch of shit. Next thing we know, we talked to Drive Thru and they're like, what do you need? And we're like, a van, new gear, a trailer, this, that, done. All right. We're on Drive Thru.
Yeah. Yep.
It wasn't that easy. We were signed to Rev. So Drive Thru had to buy the Movielife out of the Rev contract. So Rev made some money on that. So everybody was happy. And Rev still had the This Time Next Year record, which was still had some life to it.
Yeah.
So after we signed to Drive Thru and this new world knew all about us, we were selling all these Rev records because that's all we had out.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was a good thing. I mean, you know, moving to Drive Thru is probably another reason why we're still that we're talking right now. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, that's how. I mean, Anthony brought you to Nate and I. I know we were. He was the fan to start. You know, back when we were 15. So to talk to you today is pretty cool. Like, we're all friends through music, and then to be able to also talk to people like you is pretty badass.
That's cool.
Yeah, Vinny. The first time I saw you was State Theater, Portland, Maine, October 01. Do you remember? You remember?
I can tell you who we played with. Yeah.
Who was it?
Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Goldfinger, Mest, and Good Charlotte.
Real Big Fish.
Oh, Goldfinger, Real Big Fish, and Mest.
Yep. It was that tour. Yep. Yeah. First time I saw you. I'm shocked, actually, kind of dialing back to you growing up. I'm surprised my parents let me go, being 15, but it was pre-internet, so there's no like YouTube videos of stage dives, you know?
Right. I have two very vivid memories from that show. One, it was after 9/11, and Goldfinger had written like a 9/11 tune, and John Feldman made it clear that he wanted me singing on that song like every night.
Oh, The Innocent, right?
Because of our, you know, our New York, you know, we are still reeling from that. But I remember, singing that with them, I believe, for the first time. And I also won like a few $100 on a scratch off ticket that day and bought and ate my first lobster.
No,
oh, nice.
Awesome. So that's where the gambling problem comes in.
Yeah. It wasn't a problem that night. I ate well. I wasn't eating peanut butter and jelly for once.
As they always say, it's not a problem if you're winning, right?
Yeah. And just as like an added footnote to that, you know, John Feldman is like a staunch like vegan and like animal rights guy.
Yeah.
So the same day that I won my scratch off ticket, and finally I was like, I'm going to eat a lobster. I'm in Maine. I'm going to get a baked potato. I'm going to get a lobster. That same day, John Feldman like bought a bunch of lobster and released them out back into the ocean.
Wow.
He liberated some lobster.
At least that's what I was told.
That's amazing.
So I was getting on stage being like, I don't smell like lobster, right?
Yeah, because that will stay with you.
Mhm.
That's a normal thing at Christmas Eve for the family here, being an Italian. So
Yeah.
that stuff will stay with you.
Yeah, those lemons that they give, I don't like use them for the food. I use them for like
Yeah.
hand de-smelling.
I thought you were going to say it's like a chaser. You know, you eat the lobster,
That
then you
too.
chase it with a lemon.
I just keep soaking my hand in lemon juice so that my hands don't smell like fish.
By the way, Movielife has a gambling problem. Like the best EP name of all time. I don't think we have enough time to get into the context of that. Maybe we'll have you on again. But so you put that on a drive-through. You put out 40-hour train back to Penn on drive-through. That era is when I kind of get introduced to you. You know, it makes sense given what you said with the drive-through connection. Let's talk Skatefest 03. And I know you know where I'm going with this. I have I'm a nerd, and I have the ticket stub here, the Palladium. I don't know if you can see that.
What does it say?
It says
Coheed and Cambria.
Simple Plan, Coheed, and then Movielife. You guys made the stub.
We made the stub.
You made the stub, and then you ready for this? I still have 20 years later the printout from Mass Concerts. H2O. This was downstairs Palladium, Worcester, Mass. H2O, the Movielife, Piebald, Coheed, and then Simple Plan. So,
real quick, for all of you listening in your car, Anthony's holding up set list times and ticket stubs. I know it doesn't translate in an audio medium always, but yeah, that's what he's holding up. There'll be pictures on our socials.
So I managed to hang on to this. I remember going to the show. I don't know if you noticed when I held that up, the bands I wanted to see were highlighted, and you guys were highlighted. Just FYI.
Cool.
So I'll never forget. So your set list time here is 7:30 to 8 o'clock. This was probably around 7:55. You guys are going through your set. Vinny, you're up there on stage. I can't remember if it was the second to last song or the last song. And you're like, we've been the Movielife from Long Island. This will be either the last song or the second to last song we ever play. And I remember looking, I was with my buddy Ed from Boston, and we're like, what the fuck did he just say? What was that? There was no hype about it, nothing. If you're willing to, let's dig into that. Like, what happened? Did you know that was going to happen? Was that a spontaneous, like, fuck this moment, or what was that?
Yeah, so we were on a tour. It was the Movielife, Fairweather, who I believe played that day.
They did, upstairs, yeah.
And the honorary title was opening.
Yep.
And we were not getting along. This was, we had been on tour for like 3 years straight. None of us knew that we were ever going to get off Long Island in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, we just ended up being a bunch of guys in a van together that were now just together all the time. You know, growing apart, growing our separate ways, fucking sick of each other. And on this tour, we were in a van and nobody was talking to me. I wasn't talking to anybody. And I'm literally sitting next to these guys.
Wow.
Like, it was really, really shitty. Movielife had a terrible communication problem, and which could have been the next EP.
Just real quick, this was pre-smartphone, so like you guys were literally sitting next to each other, like no distractions. You know,
I think at that time we had like one phone that we would all share. It was like the band phone. If you like had to call home or something.
The Nokia phone and the MapQuest directions. That's about it.
The brick. Yeah. So things came to a head a few nights earlier on stage. We were in Pittsburgh. This is crazy that I remember all this shit. So like, I don't remember everything, but we were in Pittsburgh. We're playing to a big crowd. Like, holy shit, we're headlining the place that like Goldfinger brought us to. You know what I mean? Like, now we're headlining. And the crowd wanted another song. So we're in the backstage and they're like, let's play blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, let's play this one. Like, let's play one that they know. What are you talking about? Like, so they're like, no, we're going to play this. And I was like, no. So I just walk out on stage and I'm like, this song's called whatever I wanted it to be.
No way.
And they got on stage and there was like a very, very like tangible, everybody basically turned their backs and just looked at their amps and turned their backs on me and the crowd. So my two best friends that I grew up with were on tour with us doing merch and tour managing. So when I saw that they were like, oh, we're not down, this is like a mutiny, I just took everyone's microphone stands and threw them on the ground. And then my friend Ryan, who's our tour manager, keeps running back on stage and setting them back up. And I just keep throwing them back down. And then the next day we had all right, we got to talk. Blah, blah, blah. We should break up. Everyone's like, fuck yeah, I want to get away from all you guys. Like everybody was just in total agreement that we should break up. And then, we agreed that we wouldn't say anything and that we would just finish the tour. And the tour got a lot easier and more fun now that we had everyone had been freed of all this tension, And so of course I got on stage at our final show, which just happened to be the end of the tour, which was at Skate Fest in Worcester. And I did what I wanted to do. And I said, this is the last song we're ever going to play. And that was before Jamestown. And it was the last song in the set.
Yep.
So all the guys in the band were again, like, fuck this guy.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I just mean we agreed that we weren't going to say anything. We would make an announcement, online or something after the tour, the dust had settled. But I was looking out at a crowd of a few thousand people, many of which were singing along to every word. And I wanted to tell them at that time. So I did.
How old were you at this time, roughly?
Was it 2003?
Yeah, right around then.
23.
Yeah. So, I mean, looking back at myself at that age, I know that a lot of my friends at that time, these two excluded, are not necessarily still close friends of mine anymore. And you guys were with each other every day on tour, and the expectation
and that's the other thing. We were not close friends. That's the thing about the Movielife. Yeah. It was it wasn't that we weren't enemies or anything, but we weren't, it wasn't a band of brothers. Mm-hmm. It was a band of guys that ended up together.
Yeah. But you don't always stay with the people that you're around at that age, at 22, 23, 26, even. You move on to different parts of your life. And we expect as fans for these bands to stick around for 25 years. And it really isn't the norm.
No, it's not. And even if they do, fans are used to seeing hey, this isn't everybody that was in the band when I was 16. It's right. Yeah, that's how it goes when it's old guys,
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were younger. We didn't understand that. Now that we're closer to 40 than 35, it's yeah, I get that. That makes total sense.
Yeah. That guy didn't want to tour.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Why didn't you break up?
Oh, you have kids
at home.
Oh,
and
how are you going to go on without, one guy that doesn't want to tour anymore? It's well, I don't know. If you love something and you want to keep doing it, life is entirely too short to not keep doing what you want to do.
Totally.
So, it sounds like a pretty rough breakup, but, understandable at the same time. 2004 rolls around, a year later, I Am the Avalanche forms. Were these songs that you had been kind of writing, for the Movielife, or were you starting a project kind of brand new?
So, like I said, I wasn't writing music for the Movielife. I was just writing the vocals over the music. Mm-hmm. So there's one song in the very late Movielife days that me and Brandon Riley were working on, and we never finished, and I never wrote lyrics to. That is the only song that was kind of just a tiny bit, almost 25% a Movielife song.
Yeah.
And that song's called New Disaster. And that was on the first Avalanche self-titled record. So I immediately started writing. Well, first of all, let's not forget this. I joined Head Automatica immediately and started working with the band, and who were a bunch of buddies. And while I was in my brief stay in Head Automatica, I was writing. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I was going to have a band, and I wasn't going to play guitar in Head Automatica. That wasn't going to be the end of my story. You know what I mean? So yeah, I started writing my own stuff for the first time. And the result of that is the first Avalanche record. How
was it dealing with expectations? Because the Movielife, it took from the formation of Movielife to when I found you guys out, there's 4 years. I discovered you guys in 2001, but with Avalanche, I knew about you guys before you probably even recorded music. There was hype. So how do you deal with that? People are expecting, is this Movielife 2.0 or is this not Movielife? What's going on?
So hard because I learned real fast when we first started doing when we had our first Avalanche shows. There was some interest, like there were some people that were like, "Oh, Vinny's got a new band," but it by no means means like that. Oh, we're picking up where Movielife left off, and we're going to be selling out, clubs and all this shit. Like, and some of the people, the Avalanche record, the first one is kind of a stony record. Like the tempos are a lot slower. I'm starting to smoke a bunch of weed and like, let's remember, this is very important. Movielife, I was straight edge the entire time.
Wow.
I stopped being straight edge and then wrote a record. So not only did I write my first songs ever, but I was also getting stoned and experimenting with fun stuff.
You're talking about self-titled, right? With the red cover.
Self-titled, Avalanche record.
Yep.
I don't, it wasn't this like, holy shit, like a Pink Floyd record. And it was this departure from that. It was still me singing, but it was like, it was different than the Movielife.
Yeah.
And for the first few years, I was playing guitar in the band. And like, I think a bunch of Movielife people were like, all right, I'm good. Like, I like Movielife. I'm not going to like follow this guy into his like stony, like pilgrimage kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, the expectations were rough. I remember the first record coming out, the Avalanche record coming out, and like alternative press, which had been becoming like a pretty strong force in the scene, gave it a bad review. And I was like, damn, do we suck? And people are like, no, you don't suck. It's just different. And you're just, I don't know, you're figuring it out again. You know what I mean? Yep. This wasn't like I had Brandon Riley with me and we were writing another record's worth of songs and like calling it something else. This was like, I was alone. Like this is before there was a band. The only reason, the way that I Am the Avalanche became a band, like the members, how it formed was I booked shows. The first I Am the Avalanche shows ever were in England.
Oh, wow.
Because this promoter in England was like, I want to bring you over and do these Avalanche shows because he had heard the demos that I like leaked online. So I said yes to the shows without a band. And then I put the band together and that band
You must have been high. You must have been high.
I was. I definitely was.
There was definitely hype. Like it's funny you mentioned Head Automatica. There was hype for them too, and I actually didn't know you were in that band until tonight.
I didn't either. Yeah, that's wild.
It
was the early days. I had played 2 shows with Head Automatica and then moved on.
Right on. All right. So Avalanche is still an active band.
Oh yeah.
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 So it doesn't stop there. Like we like me personally, I've, like we said, been a fan for 20 plus years. We're familiar with the Pieced Out stuff, which is really kind of a super group. Constant Elevation. I mean, must be a dream to work with Sammy. Movielife.
Yeah, of course.
You come back, release an album, back in 2017. So the theme here is you're a dude that's always busy. And you've somehow stayed relevant. There's a lot of dudes from back in the day that I don't know where they're at. They haven't released music in a long ass time. So how do you compartmentalize projects? Like when you write something, you're like, all right, that screams Pieced Out, or like that screams Movielife.
Okay. So nowadays, there's these combinations, at least in my head, that it all computes in this way. If it's me and Brandon Riley writing music together, it's Movielife.
Makes sense.
If it's me and Mike Ireland writing together, it's I Am the Avalanche. Brandon actually reached out to me recently and was like, what do you think about doing another Movielife record? And I'm like, cool, write it. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like,
do it.
I go, I didn't write music in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon, like 40 Hour Train was Brandon and Vinny. Obviously it was a band and we were all jamming, doing our thing. And but Brandon was the dude who was bringing songs to the table. And I was the dude that was writing over him. Okay. Pieced Out, easy. Steve Choi. That's his band.
Of RX Bandits for backdrop, right?
Yep. He's writing heavy shit. He wants me to, I just try to keep up. And that's really fun because I don't write about my life. It's not like hard on your sleeve stuff with Pieced Out. Pieced Out is like drop acid and fucking stream of consciousness, like manic shit, as far as lyrics go. And then Constant Elevation is just like, oh, I'm playing with the best hardcore drummer in history, in my opinion. Let me just try and keep up with him, and let me like explore some new themes because of the parameters that we're working, under. And now I don't have enough bands, so I started another band during quarantine last year, where I'm playing with a bunch of really talented friends and neighbors. And that's kind of how the whole thing came about, because we were all like keeping a pretty tight, like, we're talking about like June of 2020, when like people start, like in New York at least, start like coming up for air. This is a band where I'm writing music, like a lot of music, and I'm not thinking everyone for the last year and a half, everyone keep looking at me being like, when's he gonna write lyrics? And I'm just like, do I need to sing in another band, or can I just be the dude that's writing cool shit and like fucking rip, like just doing what I never do, doing something different. So I'm exploring that. And then the solo stuff, of course, is just like, hard on your sleeve times a million. Like it's like a therapy session.
You're clearly a guy who doesn't sit on his hands. Like, you're not just waiting for somebody else to, hey, let's go do this. And you're like, no, I want to be in this band. I want to be in that band. I want to write here. I want to, stream of consciousness near. I'm going to give you my heart on the sleeve stuff here. That's wild to me, because, half the time I'm trying to keep my day straight, and you're doing this in however many different projects.
Yeah. I love it. I love it so much.
I love that
fair.
answer.
Yeah.
I love music. I love making music. I love writing music. I love recording music. I love performing it. I love how much it's helped me to survive this long. I don't think I'd be alive. I really don't. Like, the things I'm able to write about and sing about, and like the artistic shit I'm able to express is like my number one key to survival. And I just love it. Like, I'm working on new music right now for solo stuff, and it feels exactly, and I know it sounds like some kind of bullshit line, but it feels exactly the way it felt when I was writing the first like Movielife lyrics, and like being like, oh, this is fun, and I get to say shit, and I get to, like, I feel exactly that same way. And like, I'm excited about seeing where I could take it, and seeing if I can, I don't know, make my best song yet. That's what I'm, and I don't mean that in like the public, like, oh, like what's going to get the best reviews or what's going to be the most popular. I just mean like the thing that like gets me off, and like that gets me excited, and the different things that all of us, all the little different things that we get excited about songs, about music, about vocals, about what a singer's doing with his voice, about guitars, about drums, about studio production, all like the hundreds of things that I find interesting about songs and music in general, and all the little nuances, like those things just keep multiplying. Like it's not going away from me, it's
That's
becoming more interesting to me, and I'm getting better at understanding it, and understanding what kind of shit needs what kind of shit, and what kind of other shit I need to approach differently, So it's cool. It's definitely life. Music is life.
Yep. I mean, you're not going to get any argument from us on that.
It's why we're here. I mean, it brought us all here tonight.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a lot of canvases, different bands. The only other people I can think of that are working that hard is maybe Mike Patton and Maynard James Keenan and your buddy Daryl with Glassjaw and 20 projects. But on top of that, you're doing live streams, personalized songs, handwritten lyrics. I mean, the stuff we're all fancy. We're just talking about, like, we love that stuff too. I mean, you literally don't sit still at all. So I feel like that's pretty cool. It's playing private parties, just different outlets. Is this spawned from the pandemic, or were these always ideas that you were like, I should do that too? Why not?
I think there were things that I was doing already, but maybe maybe became more in the forefront with the pandemic. If I couldn't play live, then I was going to do the other stuff that I do, you know. But it all comes from me being just coming from a real DIY place, and that always staying with me. And also, I've never been like a rock star. Like, I've never made a fortune. I've always, like, I don't know. There's some people that are super down with what I do, and that's fucking awesome. But there's not enough people that are for me to have, like, you know, for me to sit there and be like, sit on my ass and not, you know, do all the things that you just listed. That's part of being like an artist of my stature, or an artist of my, like, the cloth that I'm cut from. You need to do all that shit, and I'm fucking happy to do it because it just comes naturally. It doesn't seem like you guys saying, "Oh man, you're doing so much shit." Like, it doesn't feel like I'm doing that much shit.
Nice.
Maybe it's because I'm not touring with all these things, and I'm not like, holy shit,
Right.
This is too much, you know? But creativity wise, like, there's definitely hours in any day, if you make those hours and if you put the time in to get better at what you're doing, or to expand what people think you are, there's definitely enough hours in the day to make that happen, as long as you care enough about it. There's plenty of shit that I do not care about that I don't do.
Here, brother.
But the thing, I care so much about music because of what it's afforded me, which is not material shit or riches or fame or anything like that, but it's afforded me this constant outlet that if I keep feeding it, that it keeps making me feel good, and it keeps making me happy, and keeps me, I don't know, from going to the dark side. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're like a shark.
Yeah.
You got to keep swimming, right?
Oh,
If
yeah.
you don't, you're just going to sink. So you just keep moving.
Yeah. This music thing is like a lifeline, kind of. And I don't mean that to be in like a morbid way. I just mean it like, I don't think I would be a happy guy if I didn't have that very big part of me.
Yep.
And very big part of what I put my effort into. And it's not just something to do, it's something to do that I love, you know?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, we've interviewed a bunch of folks and had a lot of conversations with a lot of folks on this podcast, and that's a common theme, which is it's an extension of a lot of people, and it's their creative outlet, and it's what they do, it's what they think about. When they're not doing music, they're thinking about music, and it sounds like that is you. So what we like to do in this podcast to close us out is a lightning round.
Okay.
Which is basically questions that don't fit in the rest of the interview, kind of quick hitters. Before we do that, just real quick, what's next for you? I think you kind of hinted at maybe some solo stuff, but like, what else? Actually, you said Brandon's jonesing for a Movielife LP. Like, what's next for you?
I wouldn't be surprised if there was more Movielife music. Brandon's just got to write it. I don't think I should be writing it. I think he should. Definitely more Avalanche music.
Nice.
Me and Mike Ireland are constantly writing together. Solo stuff is what I'm up at 3 a.m. working on. The band that I started during quarantine is just kind of like forming. Like, I think we have all the members now, and there's 12 songs, none of which have lyrics on it because I have resisted. So that's something that is definitely going to be worked on this year. I'll probably record a full length. That's with members of American Nightmare, Hope Conspiracy, Taking Back Sunday, Sonhet.
Wow. It's a super group.
Just super neighbors.
The Super Neighbors. Is that the name of the band? Let's go.
So why doesn't Constant Elevation go by X Limp Bizkit?
we should claim that shit. Next time we play a Constant Elevation show, which will, whatever Sammy comes back to New York, I want that to go on the flyer. And yeah, and just a bunch of shows with everything. Like, we're gonna go nuts and just have fun while we're still alive.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So Vinny, lightning round. This is stuff that just, some of it's jokey stuff, some of it's serious. So anyway, I have This Time Next Year on CD, which I've had for like 20 years. At the very bottom, the last page, contact the Movielife, the MLife at AOL.com. If I emailed that right now, would someone respond?
I don't know. Probably not. That was in our old drummer. That was his email.
Oh, wow.
And he hasn't been involved for a while.
What about the phone number, 516 area code?
That would be his parents' house.
Should I do
I
it?
don't know if they still live.
Should I call it right now?
No, don't. They're very old. I don't know if they still live there or what, but that would have been his parents' like landline.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's the second interview in a row we've had that happen, or second of the last three we've had that happen, where someone's put their mom's phone number, their parents' phone number on promo stuff. That's
Benny
amazing.
did. Horowitz.
Yeah.
He put his
all those old flyers. That's
Yep.
funny. Just as a side note, Benny actually played one of our first shows, Movielife, in Evan's parents' basement with the
Nice.
Low End Theory.
Evan. Yeah, we heard
Yeah,
about Evan.
we did hear about Evan. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's amazing.
The crypto
And me and
billionaire.
Benny interviewed me for his podcast, and we touched on that.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, old late '90s hardcore shit. I thought this was a lightning round.
I know. I was
know,
like, we get a couple. I'll jump in here. So
They're your babies, man. You
I
gotta
know.
do it.
Yeah. So Vinny, there's a lyric from the title track on This Time Next Year. Title track This Time Next Year. Now I'm feeling strong, but hard work seems to get me nowhere. So do you still feel like 20-year-old Vinny right now?
No, I don't. I think it's gotten me somewhere. It hasn't gotten me to Valhalla. It's just gotten me to like, I mean, if we're just talking about music, you know, I'm happy to look back on a lot of these releases, and I'm happy to think about the fact that there's people listening to them as we speak, and that there's guys like you guys that care enough about it to want to talk to me about it that many years later, you know.
Right on. Yep.
I would say all that hard work definitely got me somewhere. Where? I don't know.
Spending your time with three dudes from Maine on a on a Wednesday night. So much appreciated.
That's right. I'll take it.
Last one. What size were your jeans in the Jamestown music video?
Shit.
Yeah, and do you still have them?
And are you wearing
no.
them right now?
No. That's so funny. So we were getting into
You're like, this question again. Shit.
no, nobody ever asked me that. I know what kind of jeans they were. We were getting into the whole like New York City like streetwear kind of thing.
Yeah.
And which was tied into hip hop quite a bit. And baggy jeans had kind of made a comeback a little bit. And so you go to these like streetwear boutiques in Soho and shit, and you buy the jeans that you think you're supposed to buy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did that. We did that at that age.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That was us.
I don't wish I still had those jeans, but I do wish I still had the Air Force Ones that I wore in that video.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. Those actually might be worth some money nowadays.
Right? I know. Maybe the jeans, too. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. What's next?
All right, this one wasn't planned, but I'm just thinking of it on the spot. So I'm a big Crime in Stereo guy, one of my favorite bands of all time. How do you feel about them ripping off the intro to 10 Seconds Too Late with Bicycles for Afghanistan? And I know you're tight with Brett, and I think I don't know if he was in the band at that point in time, but are you aware of this?
Can you pull up Crime in Stereo on Spotify?
Yes.
And actually, no, just type in Bicycles for Afghanistan. My wife's
Vinny, spoiler alert, it's the same.
Yeah. What year did that come out?
06.
Oh, we're good. That shit came out in 2000.
Yeah, and we talked about this with Brendan, did we not? And we put it on our episode 46 playlist, which we used to make a playlist for all these, and it's on there. They're both the songs are on there. So go back and peep that. It's alive.
Oh, there's an artist called Bicycles for Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Oh yeah, it's the same thing.
Exactly. That's kind of like paying homage, though, right? You're both from Long Island.
Vinny's like, where are my royalties? Nitro Records. Who is it? Dexter Holland?
I never really noticed, to be honest, and I've heard that song a million times. But yeah, there's the same chords. I will say that I will not hold that against Carmen Stereo because we're both ripping off Silent Majority at the same time, but they just did it like 6 years later.
I love it.
Man. All right, I got one last one that just sprung up. So in high school, I used to, when we were all listening to you guys, have the magazine subscription sent to me from the UK called Kerrang magazine. Do you remember them?
Oh yeah.
Still active. So for us in the States, obviously the only magazines that mattered were Circus and Hit Parader and kind of off the cuff stuff. Rolling Stone wasn't covering much. AP, actually, you mentioned earlier, was a good one. But Kerrang out of Europe was dope. Like everything to the photos, the stories. You guys were in there a lot. Did you ever collect any of that stuff or check it out after it pressed?
Yeah, I collected all of it, and I lost all of it in a flood when Hurricane Irene came.
Oh man,
I don't have like any like memorabilia or all the shit I saved. I lost in a flood. But Kerrang, that was a Daryl thing too. Glassjaw popped off, and like their first tour in the UK was supporting the Deftones.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah.
And people in the UK were like, "Yep, Glassjaw, that's my shit." Like Glassjaw's what's up. Kerrang was like Glassjaw. Yeah. And so Daryl would do interviews and be like, "Check out my friend's band, Movielife."
Love it.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
Yeah, Kerrang were really, really powerful back then. Like, I mean, I'm sure they still are now, but you know, we're talking about when people are buying magazines more than they are now. Yeah, I remember our first Kerrang played a huge part in like our success in the UK. We for those that don't know, like when our first tour in the UK, we had bigger shows than anywhere in the United States. Our first tour there.
Wow.
Our first tour there, we were headlining, and every single show was packed. Thursday opened the tour, and the London show, there was 1,000 people at the show, and it was sold out. And we had not done anything remotely close to that in the States, including our hometown.
Amazing.
And Kerrang was just all over the Movielife and just super supportive of us, and that was really cool. And I do have a really cool memory of the first time we were in Kerrang. We were playing like the CMJ showcase, and the photographer that shot us, her name was Scarlett Page, and it was Jimmy Page's daughter.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, your dad's Jimmy Page? What do you mean?
What?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, my dad's Jimmy Page.
Like, yeah, no, he's the Jimmy Page.
We were like, this is crazy. This is going to be fun. And it was. You know, we went, Movielife had there was probably 3 years where nobody knew who we were. And then there was 3 years where we had a lot of fun, made a big name for ourselves, played a lot of great shows, and had a lot of, you know, made lifelong friends and did some really cool shit. So it's very, very fucking cool.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Any last lightning rounds?
I think
Before I go and have a shot and a beer at the bar down the street?
no, we can let you do that. We'll let you go. Vinny, thank you for coming on with us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. It was cool. Thanks for having me.
Been a blast, man.
It was nice to hang out.
A lot of those questions we've had for like 20 years, so you've been quite the guest. We appreciate it.
All right, boys. Have a great night.